Hello YouTube, this is Dr. Sola coming to you from Lagos, Nigeria. So I am back from vacation. I spent 3 weeks in London, and over 3 weeks I spent maybe more than 14 days indoors. I didn't go out. It wasn't the cold, I was just that exhausted. I needed time to rest. So while I was gone, guess what happened? Our big installation blew up. Yes, you heard me right. Little bit of a disaster. Prior to my departure, on the day I left, we were pulling 72 kilowatts on system 1 and pulling about 30 kilowatts on system 2. So that's a combined 100 kilowatts. They'd done something without consulting with us. They added some additional loads without consulting with us. And the system was not balanced. It's fine, but it wasn't balanced. We'd have liked the loads to be evenly split between system 1 and system 2. Well, a few days later, or 2 weeks later, the system goes off and wouldn't come on. And we couldn't figure out what was going on. My folks called me and they said to me, Dr. Sola, the system is not coming on. We see power going from the inverters, but the power is not going into the building. So system 1 was not outputting to the building. By the way, if you don't subscribe, please click the subscribe button. And if you do like this video, smash the like button. So back to where we were. So now, what was going on? I told them to test the breakers. Actually, prior to that, we doubled our cabling. We had 25 mm cables going from the inverters to our going from our EPS power box to our main breaker, and from the main breaker to the building. And we noticed at 75 kilowatts there was a lot of heat and smells, so we doubled the cables. We damaged a big breaker in the process, and due to heat we replaced that. We put new cables on. What happened while they were doing that was they didn't have the same 4-pole breaker, so they used a 3-pole breaker and an earth bar. Well, the lights failed after that. So I assumed that it was something that they did that caused the failure. So what you do is you start at the last place that you changed. They touched that spot, nothing happened, and then what we did was we removed the EPS power box. We took it to system 2, plugged it in, and it wouldn't come on. So we eliminated the breaker, we eliminated the issue coming from the inverter, and we came to the conclusion that the problem was the EPS power box. So there are two contactors, an input contactor and an exit contactor. And what the contactor does, it opens to allow the inverters to supply, and it closes to stop the inverters from supplying. So we thought the contactors were bad. So after doing this thing for about a few days, I eventually said, okay, let's swap the contactor on the input side with the contactor on the output side. But during this period, our client, the hotel was full. They were having their biggest program of the year. And the new generators they purchased, guess what? They kept tripping and they failed. So now they needed solar backup, right? System 2 was working, system 1 wouldn't. And guess what? Someone was stuck in the elevators. And guess which system powered the elevator? System 1. So it was not fun, getting messages at 2 o'clock in the morning. Brother Christopher, why is this happening? Why don't we have power? And to cut a long story short, it was not a good showing and it wasn't a good moment for us. And we made the decision that we will make some corrections. So once we did the change, you figured that after doing the change, swapping the contactors, the system will come back on. System wouldn't come back on. Actually, let me go back. During the time they were doing diagnostics, I told them that the problem was the contactor. They should focus on that area. They made contact with Solar X. Solar X felt it was something different, and then Solar X now was asking them to go in, change the master, do this, do that. And once they change the master, the inverters will no longer parallel. They stop paralleling. So we got the contactor fixed. That was fine. Now we couldn't get the inverters to parallel. So now it's a week and the inverters wouldn't parallel. I came back on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. System still wasn't on. So Monday I went to the site. We spent quite a bit of time. The manufacturer spent time trying to figure out what was going on, and they could not resolve it. It was 9 p.m. China time. The young man said, look, I need to go eat dinner. We'll resume this tomorrow. So the next day, Tuesday, at 3 o'clock in the morning, we're exchanging messages. He's asking all these questions. And then he starts to play with the systems. Now, 2 inverters were in slave. The other 4 were set at free mode, which means they were not being paralleled. No matter what we did, no matter which we switched to, the system will not parallel. We're getting EPS parallel. And now we're going nuts. It's like, that morning I said a prayer. I don't normally pray, but I said a prayer. I said, God, you didn't get me this far to leave me now. And the young man kept putzing with it. And then one of the inverters that's not part of the batch, he made that the master, and guess what? The system started to work again. So the system is fine. We're not letting it supply the building yet. So this is part 1. We're not letting it supply the building because we're going to balance. We're going to move about 30 kilowatts to system 2. So we're at about 50 kilowatts. But the other part, why did the EPS parallel box fail? So when we received the EPS parallel box, we noticed it only had provision for 5 inverters, and it was an 80 amp max. I asked the supplier, I said, look, you've given me this stuff that's 80 amps max. Are you sure it's going to work? He said, oh, let me get back to you. He gets back to me. He tells me it should be fine. So after the system blows up now, we're talking to Solar X. They ask us to send them serial numbers. We send them serial numbers and they go, guess what? This is limited to 50 kilowatts. You exceeded it. We will not honor the warranty because you did not use it correctly. So now they referred us back to the supplier, which is Tajax, and now we're having a conversation back and forth to see how to get a resolution. So in the meantime, what we're going to do is we're going to put current limiters on all the inverters to limit our total output to 50 kilowatts, which is exactly the max that the EPS power box can supply, while we try to get a resolution to the EPS power box system. So that's my little story. That's what I came back to meet after I returned from vacation, and hopefully it's going to get better from this point on. So if you like what you see, please give me a thumbs up. If you've not subscribed, please click the subscribe button. Once again, this is Dr. Sola coming to you from Lagos, Nigeria. Thank you.